The day I found the envelope on my mother's kitchen counter, I knew something was wrong. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 48 years old, and for most of my life I believed blood meant loyalty. My younger brother Brian worked construction, claimed to be the one holding the family together while Mom's health slipped. But when I picked up that thick envelope stamped with the bank's crest, my stomach dropped. It was addressed to Mom, retirement account statement. I had power of attorney until her illness progressed. Then Brian offered to handle the paperwork. She insisted I let him, said he was more available closer by. I didn't argue. I trusted him. The statement listed withdrawals, large ones, tens of thousands, then hundreds. The total balance that should have been over $1.1 million had dwindled to less than $50,000. My name wasn't mentioned anywhere on the authorization records. Instead, a signature that looked eerily like Mom's sprawled across the forms. I showed the paper to Mom in her armchair. She squinted, coughed, and whispered, "Why would you sign that without telling me?" My chest went tight. "Mom, I didn't." Brian walked in then, carrying grocery bags, smiling like a dutiful son. His eyes flicked to the envelope in my hand, and something sharp passed over his face before he covered it with another smile. "What's this about?" he asked. Mom turned her gaze on me, confusion clouding her features. "Daniel, I trusted you." I froze, betrayed by ink I hadn't written, blamed for money I hadn't touched. Brian set the groceries down gently, almost theatrically, as if to play the part of the calm caretaker. That night, lying awake, the words replayed in my head. "Daniel, I trusted you." It wasn't just the money. It was the fact that my own mother thought I'd betrayed her. And Brian, my own brother, stood there watching, letting me take the fall. I didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. The blow-up came 2 nights later. Mom had dozed off in the recliner, her oxygen machine humming in the corner. Brian called me into the kitchen, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. When I walked in, he was already standing there with the bank statement spread across the counter like an exhibit in court. "You need to stop scaring Mom," he said, low and dangerous. "She doesn't need this stress." I pointed at the page. "Stress, Brian, the accounts bled dry. Where's the money?" He didn't flinch. He even leaned back against the counter, arms folded. "Handled. I invested it. High-yield real estate project in Flagstaff. You wouldn't understand." "You invested? Without me? Without Mom's consent?" He smirked. "Mom signed. It's all there. Maybe you've forgotten, but she trusts me. Not you." I picked up the papers, shaking. The signature was close enough to fool someone. But I knew Mom's handwriting. She hadn't signed this. "You forged her name," I whispered. His eyes narrowed. "Careful with your words, Danny. That sounds like an accusation." "It is," I snapped. My voice rose, echoing down the hall. "You stole from Mom, from all of us." The recliner creaked. Mom shuffled into the doorway, clutching her sweater. Her eyes darted between us. "What's going on?" Brian turned instantly soft, stepping toward her. "Nothing, Mom. Daniel's confused. He doesn't understand investments." She looked at me, searching, but Brian was faster. He took her hand, squeezed it. "He's upset because the account looks smaller, but that's temporary. I'm growing the money. You'll be proud when the returns start coming in." Her expression wavered. Trust tugged between us. Then she whispered the words that gutted me. "Daniel, maybe you should let your brother handle this. You've been so busy with work. Maybe you don't see the full picture." I stood frozen, as if she'd struck me. My own mother, The woman who taught me to double-check the locks, who handed me Dad's old ledger and said, "Honesty is your inheritance," looked at me like I was the problem. Brian caught my eye over her head, smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. He'd won this round, turned her doubt into my cage. The next day, it spread. Aunt Carol called me. "Brian said you're giving him a hard time about the finances. You should be grateful he's stepping up. Not everyone has a son like that." At work, my phone buzzed with texts from cousins. "Why are you accusing Brian? He's only trying to help Grandma." Even my son, Ethan, texted after school. "Dad, Uncle Brian says you're stressed and making Mom worse. Is that true?" My chest burned as I read the words. My son believed him too. That night, Brian cornered me in the driveway. His voice was low, laced with triumph. "You won't win this. Everyone's on my side. Mom, the family, even Ethan. You'll just look bitter if you keep pushing." I stared at him, fists clenched. "I don't need sides, Brian. I need the truth." He laughed softly, shook his head, and walked away. And in that moment, the betrayal was no longer just about the money. He'd stolen my place in my own family, turned me into the villain in the story of my mother's last years. Something inside me snapped. Isolation didn't come slowly. It crashed down in a single weekend. Saturday morning, I pulled into Mom's driveway with groceries. The key I'd used for 20 years no longer fit the lock. I jiggled it, confused, until the door swung open. Brian stood there, arms crossed. "Change the locks," he said flatly. "Mom needs rest. No surprise visits." I blinked. "No surprise, Brian. I'm bringing her food. She needs peace," he cut in. "Every time you come, you upset her. The doctor said stress is dangerous in her condition. So from now on, you call me first." I looked past him. Mom sat in the recliner, wrapped in a blanket, her eyes fixed on the TV. She didn't look up, didn't wave. For the first time, I felt like a stranger in her house. Sunday, the family group chat blew up. I sent a message asking if anyone else had seen the withdrawal statements. Seconds later, my screen lit up with replies. "Brian explained it already. Stop harassing him, Daniel. Mom doesn't need this drama." Then silence. My messages stopped delivering. One by one, I'd been blocked. At work, 2 colleagues I'd known since college pulled me aside. "We heard you've been giving your brother a hard time about your mom's care," one said carefully. "That's family business, but people are talking." People. Always people. The whispers spread like wildfire, painting me as a bitter son trying to snatch control from the brother who'd stepped up. That night, I called Ethan. He answered, his voice tight. "Dad, Uncle Brian says you're trying to take Grandma's money. He showed us papers, said you're just angry he's helping." My throat went dry. "Ethan, those papers are forged." "Then prove it," he snapped. "Until you do, I don't know what to believe." The call ended with a hollow beep. I sat in my dark kitchen, staring at the phone. My son doubted me. My mother believed I'd betrayed her. My extended family shut me out. And Brian, he moved through it all like a conductor, orchestrating every note of my downfall. The silence was suffocating. No allies, no audience for my truth. Just me, the ledger Dad once kept, and a gnawing certainty that Brian had planned this isolation from the start. I wasn't just losing money. I was losing my name. And in that kind of darkness, I realized something. The only way out wasn't to beg for their belief. It was to bring proof so undeniable, it shattered the story he'd written. But I wasn't there yet. For now, I sat alone, watching everything slip away, The first crack in Brian's story came from someone I never expected, Mrs. Klein, Mom's next-door neighbor. I was walking back to my car one afternoon after another cold visit where Brian blocked me at the door, when Mrs. Klein called out from her porch. "Daniel," she whispered, glancing around nervously. "Can we talk?" Inside her kitchen, she poured tea with trembling hands. "I overheard something last week." Brian was on the phone pacing the yard. He said, "The old lady doesn't even know I moved the money yet." He laughed, Daniel, laughed. Her words made my chest burn. "Would you be willing to repeat that?" She hesitated, then nodded. "If it comes to it." That night, I searched for help beyond family. I found a forensic document examiner in Phoenix, Dr. Linda Rowe. I showed her copies of the bank withdrawal forms. She studied the signatures with a magnifier, then looked up. "This is traced. Your mother didn't sign this. I can prepare a full report." 2 days later, I met with a bank officer I'd known casually through work, David Holt. He pulled up transaction logs under the guise of client care. What he showed me chilled me to the bone. Multiple transfers authorized with a signature scan that didn't match the bank's records for Mom's ID. One login came from Brian's personal IP address. "Daniel," David said, lowering his voice, "this is fraud. If you push this to legal, the bank will have to freeze the accounts." Proof, at last. But Brian was already winning the social war. He'd painted me as the bitter son at Mom's church group. When I walked in that Sunday, whispers followed me like shadows. One man even muttered, "There goes the greedy one." So I decided to go public. The next family dinner was supposed to be quiet. Just cousins, aunts, uncles. Brian was there, sitting tall, passing mashed potatoes like he owned the room. Mom was too weak to attend, but her absence only gave him more power. When the plates were half empty, I stood. "I need everyone's attention." Brian smirked. "Here we go again." I pulled out copies of the forensic report, the bank logs, and a signed statement from Mrs. Klein. "You've all been told I'm trying to take Mom's money. Here's the truth." Brian forged her signature. He drained more than $1 million from her retirement. The bank has logs of his IP address. A handwriting expert confirmed the forgeries, and Mrs. Klein overheard him bragging about it. The table erupted. Aunt Carol shook her head violently. "That can't be true." But Cousin Mark, a lawyer, grabbed the papers. His eyes widened as he scanned the technical details. This looks legitimate." Brian stood, face red. "He's lying. You're all falling for his theatrics." Mark shot him a look. "Then how do you explain the IP address tied to your home internet?" Silence. Brian's jaw clenched. In the corner, Ethan sat stiff, eyes locked on me. Slowly, his expression shifted. Not all the way to belief, but the doubt was cracking. "I don't want Mom's money," I said, voice steady. "I want her dignity. Dad worked 40 years for that fund. Brian tried to erase it with forged ink." The room was chaos. Accusations, denials, gasps. Some defended Brian. Others stared at the evidence. But one thing was certain. The tide was turning. The whispers no longer belonged only to him. That night, as I drove home, Ethan texted, "Dad, can I see the papers myself?" For the first time in months, I let myself breathe. Proof was no longer mine alone. It was spreading, piece by piece, cracking Brian's facade. And cracks, if you push hard enough, always shatter. I started where Brian thought no one would look, at the bank desk where his paper trail began. Denise, the Horizon Life clerk who'd whispered to me before, introduced me to her friend at First Union, a senior fraud analyst named Carla. In a back office that smelled like toner and burnt coffee, Carla pulled the authorizations on Mom's retirement transfers and the temporary power of attorney Brian had filed 6 months earlier. She slid the monitor toward me. See the upload timestamps? The POA and the withdrawal instruction were scanned 15 minutes apart. Same device ID. That's unusual unless someone walked both sheets in together. Same person, I said. My brother. Carla nodded. And this is bigger. The notary stamp on the POA doesn't match the county registry. The commission number belongs to a notary who expired last year. A dead stamp. My pulse kicked. Next stop was handwriting. Frank Sullivan, the forensic examiner, set my mother's real signatures from a 2019 mortgage refinance and the 2021 Medicare forms, beside Brian's submissions. Under magnification, the tremor of Mom's illness drew a thin, wavy track. The claimed signatures swooped confidently, pressure heavy at the start of each capital. Simulated forgery, Frank said. The forger traced a mental image, not a motor habit. If I testify, I'll survive cross. I needed one more pillar, a witness outside family. Mrs. Delaney, Mom's widowed neighbor, poured tea and whispered what she'd overheard through the paper-thin walls 2 months earlier. Brian on speakerphone with a guy from the title office, asking whether a temporary POA can backdate a transfer if Mom's too shaky to sign. She shivered. Your mother was crying in the bathroom after that call. Proof in 3 strokes. Metadata, handwriting, witness. But Brian's armor was public narrative. So I cracked it in public. The church held its monthly potluck that Sunday. Brian arrived early with aluminum trays and a smile built for cameras. I waited until the hall brimmed with casseroles, choir ladies, deacons, people who'd swallowed his version whole. I stepped to the announcements mic. I need 2 minutes. My voice didn't waver. Many of you were told I'm attacking my brother while Mom's sick. You deserve facts. I tapped my tablet. The hall TV mirrored my screen. Slide 1. County registry page with the real notary's expired commission. Slide 2. Carla's audit log. 2 documents uploaded by the same device within 15 minutes. Slide 3. Frank's side-by-side signatures with red circles over the forged pressure points. Mom's hand shook like this, I said, tracing the tremor track. These signatures don't. Murmurs swelled into a low tide of shock. A deacon removed his glasses. 2 choir ladies gasped in unison. Brian pushed through the crowd, face flushed. He's manipulating you with screenshots. He hates that I stepped up. I didn't raise my voice. Mrs. Delaney? From the back, the neighbor stood, fingers white around her purse. I heard you ask about backdating a power of attorney, Brian. Helen, your mother, was sobbing. Eyes swung to him. In that instant, his smile died. Pastor Miller cleared his throat, slow and heavy. These are serious claims with documentation. Brian, you will address them with the bank and with your family, not with rumors. By nightfall, screenshots of my slides lived in every group chat that had exiled me. My phone flooded. Cousins, co-workers, even Ethan. Dad, I'm sorry. I need to talk. Public drama had done what private pleading never could. It broke Brian's spell. And men whose power is built on stories don't forgive the truth for interrupting them. I knew the counterpunch was coming. I just didn't know how fast. It landed the next morning at 7:12 a.m. Carla called first. Heads up. Compliance just froze the retirement account. We flagged the POA and withdrawal pattern. Your brother tried to move the remaining funds to a new LLC last night. Name of the LLC? I asked. Mercy Flagstaff Holdings, she said dryly. Registered yesterday. He listed your mother as managing member. I closed my eyes. He was still forging forward. 30 minutes later, Brian texted a photo of Mom in a wheelchair at the clinic, his arm around her. She's fragile. You did this with your drama. Come meet us at St. Matthew's Hall tonight. Family only. We settle it, or the bank gets nothing back. He wanted a hostage negotiation dressed as a family meeting. The pressure was the point. If I resisted, I'd look heartless. If I yielded, he'd bulldoze the freeze before questions multiplied. I called Frank. We need to be ready to show everything in one room. He didn't hesitate. Bring the audit logs and the notary roll. I'll bring the magnified signatures. And Daniel, record anything he says. At noon, Denise rang me with the last piece I didn't know I needed. Eric, your brother also filed a beneficiary change on a small annuity your father left. Switched it from children in equal share to him alone, dated 2 months after your father died. Grief scalded my throat. Dad was gone. He changed it after. Same stamp, same pen pressure, she said. Same ghost. By late afternoon, Ethan showed up at my door, eyes rimmed red. I read everything. I was wrong. He swallowed. Can I come tonight? Yeah, I said, pulling him into a hug I hadn't realized I'd been holding back since this started. You're the reason I'm doing it this way. We arrived early to St. Matthew's Hall. Rows of folding chairs, the church's corkboard of bake sales and blood drives, a vending machine humming like a nervous witness. Mom sat front row, smaller than I remembered, cardigan swallowing her shoulders. Brian hovered beside her, face composed but eyes sharp. He opened with theater. For the sake of peace, he said, projecting to the room of aunts and uncles, I propose Daniel sign a non-disclosure and rescind his accusations. In return, I'll manage Mom's assets, and the bank will release what's needed for her care. Heads nodded. Peace is a tempting drug. I walked to the front, rested my hand on Mom's chairback. No non-disclosure, no hush, just truth. Slide 1, the expired notary commission. Slide 2, upload timestamps from Carla. Slide 3, Frank's overlays, gasps again. But this time I didn't stop. I held up Denise's email printout with the posthumous beneficiary change. You changed Dad's annuity after he was gone, I said. You listed Mom as manager of a brand new LLC yesterday. You tried to move frozen funds at 11:47 p.m. while texting pictures of her as leverage this morning. Brian's mask slipped. You think you're a hero? He hissed. You humiliated me at church. You turned Ethan against me. You've always been jealous. I hit record on my phone, laid it on the table, and slid a copy of the freeze notice toward him. Tell Mom the truth, on tape, or I walk this to the DA tomorrow morning. For a heartbeat, the room was nothing but the click of the exit sign relays. Then Mom's voice, thin but steady. Brian, did you sign my name? He stared at her, at me, at the phone. Something curdled in his expression, a calculation cut short by the math of the room. He straightened, jaw tight. I did what I had to protect us, Aunt Carol whispered. Oh, God. Ethan's breath hitched beside me. I stopped the recording. Thank you. Across the hall, Pastor Miller, who'd come to unlock the building, stepped forward with a quiet finality. This meeting is over. Mrs. Mercer, we'll get you home. The twist wasn't that the bank froze the money. It was that Brian admitted the lie, on the very stage he chose, because his need to control the room overran his instincts for self-preservation. If you're listening on Revenge Stories Menu 50, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Thank you. Outside, the desert evening bled orange into purple. Ethan squeezed my shoulder. What happens now? Now, I said, tucking the recording into a shared cloud folder. We stop him for good. Thursday morning, the courthouse lobby buzzed with voices bouncing off marble floors. Families, clerks, lawyers juggling files. I sat with Ethan beside me, Frank Sullivan on the other side. In my jacket pocket lay the USB drive with Carla's audit logs, Frank's handwriting overlays, Denise's notary records, and the recording of Brian admitting, "I did what I had to." Brian strutted in 10 minutes late, a rented suit too tight at the shoulders, jaw clenched. Two cousins trailed behind him like reluctant shadows. He spotted me across the benches, smirked as if we were equals in some chess match. But today wasn't chess. Today was demolition. Inside the hearing room, the judge asked for opening remarks. Brian's lawyer, a slick type with hair gel and cufflinks, launched into a speech about family misunderstandings and brothers feuding during emotional times. He waved vaguely at Mom, frail in the front row, saying she supported Brian's stewardship. Then it was my turn. I stood, hands steady. "Your Honor, this isn't a feud. It's fraud. My brother siphoned $1.1 million from our mother's retirement account using forged signatures and a false power of attorney. He then attempted to move frozen funds into a shell company registered yesterday." The lawyer scoffed. "Bold allegations. Where's the proof?" I clicked the projector remote. Slide 1, the Notary Commission Registry, showing the stamp expired a year before Brian used it. Slide 2, Carla's metadata logs, upload timestamps, device IDs, IP addresses tying directly to Brian's home router. Slide 3, Frank's magnified overlays, red circles where the forgeries broke stroke continuity. And then, audio. Brian's voice clear as church bells in the quiet room. "I did what I had to protect us." The judge's brow lifted. The gallery murmured. Ethan sat taller beside me, his eyes fierce. Brian's lawyer scrambled. "Context! That statement could mean anything." But Frank leaned forward. "Your Honor, as a forensic examiner with 30 years' experience, I can attest the signatures are simulated forgeries. The audio corroborates motive and intent." The lawyer tried another angle. "Even if irregularities exist, where's the harm? Funds are intact, merely redirected." Carla rose from the witness row. "As compliance officer for First Union, I confirm attempted transfers to an LLC using false documents constitute bank fraud. Federal statute applies." That landed like a hammer. Brian leapt up, red-faced. "You think you're better than me, Daniel? Dad always favored you, Mom trusted you, and I—" The judge slammed her gavel. "Mr. Mercer, sit down." But it was too late. His outburst exposed what the evidence already proved. This wasn't stewardship. It was jealousy dressed as guardianship. When the hearing adjourned, the bailiff escorted Brian to a side room for questioning. Mom sobbed quietly, and for the first time she wouldn't look at him. Outside, the reporters waited. Someone had tipped them off, maybe Carla, maybe the DA's office, but cameras clustered like vultures. Microphones shoved forward. "Mr. Mercer, is it true your brother attempted to steal your mother's retirement?" I didn't smile, didn't grandstand. I simply held up the folder. "The truth's in here. Ask the court." The next 48 hours unraveled faster than I'd imagined. The district attorney announced formal charges: forgery, bank fraud, wire fraud. The local paper ran the headline, "Son exploits sick mother. Brother exposes $1.1 million fraud." The real blow, though, wasn't legal. It was social. The same cousins who'd blocked me from group chats flooded my phone with apologies. Aunt Carol left 3 voicemails in tears. Ethan's friends at school stopped whispering that his dad was the greedy one. Brian's empire, built on charm and forged ink, collapsed in the space of 1 week. The final scene came on Sunday, at church again. Pastor Miller paused the service to address the congregation. We were misled, but Daniel brought truth at great cost to himself. Integrity requires courage, and he showed it. Applause followed, awkward but real. I caught Ethan's eye. He mouthed, "Proud of you, Dad." The blow wasn't just final, it was absolute. Brian would face years untangling charges and restitution. I would face the slow work of rebuilding trust with Mom, with family, with myself. But the power balance had shifted forever. And as I walked out of that courthouse into the Arizona sun, I knew. The brother who once painted me as villain now wore his own mask, cracked and discarded, for all to see. Thursday morning, the courthouse lobby buzzed with voices bouncing off marble floors. Families, clerks, lawyers juggling files. I sat with Ethan beside me, Frank Sullivan on the other side. In my jacket pocket lay the USB drive with Carla's audit logs, Frank's handwriting overlays, Denise's notary records, and the recording of Brian admitting, "I did what I had to." Brian strutted in 10 minutes late, a rented suit too tight at the shoulders, jaw clenched. Two cousins trailed behind him like reluctant shadows. He spotted me across the benches, smirked as if we were equals in some chess match. But today wasn't chess. Today was demolition. Inside the hearing room, the judge asked for opening remarks. Brian's lawyer, a slick type with hair gel and cufflinks, launched into a speech about family misunderstandings and brothers feuding during emotional times. He waved vaguely at Mom, frail in the front row, saying she supported Brian's stewardship. Then it was my turn. I stood, hands steady. "Your Honor, this isn't a feud. It's fraud. My brother siphoned $1.1 million from our mother's retirement account using forged signatures and a false power of attorney. He then attempted to move frozen funds into a shell company registered yesterday." The lawyer scoffed. "Bold allegations. Where's the proof?" I clicked the projector remote. Slide 1, the Notary Commission Registry, showing the stamp expired a year before Brian used it. Slide 2, Carla's metadata logs, upload timestamps, device IDs, IP addresses tying directly to Brian's home router. Slide 3, Frank's magnified overlays, red circles where the forgeries broke stroke continuity. And then, audio. Brian's voice, clear as church bells in the quiet room. "I did what I had to protect us." The judge's brow lifted. The gallery murmured. Ethan sat taller beside me, his eyes fierce. Brian's lawyer scrambled. "Context! That statement could mean anything." But Frank leaned forward. "Your Honor, as a forensic examiner with 30 years' experience, I can attest the signatures are simulated forgeries. The audio corroborates motive and intent." The lawyer tried another angle. "Even if irregularities exist, where's the harm? Funds are intact, merely redirected." Carla rose from the witness row. "As compliance officer for First Union, I confirm attempted transfers to an LLC using false documents constitute bank fraud. Federal statute applies." That landed like a hammer. Brian leapt up, red-faced. "You think you're better than me, Daniel? Dad always favored you, Mom trusted you, and I—" The judge slammed her gavel. "Mr. Mercer, sit down." But it was too late. His outburst exposed what the evidence already proved. This wasn't stewardship. It was jealousy dressed as guardianship. When the hearing adjourned, the bailiff escorted Brian to a side room for questioning. Mom sobbed quietly, and for the first time she wouldn't look at him. Outside, the reporters waited. Someone had tipped them off. Maybe Carla, maybe the DA's office, but cameras clustered like vultures. Microphones shoved forward. "Mr. Mercer, is it true your brother attempted to steal your mother's retirement?" I didn't smile, didn't grandstand. I simply held up the folder. "The truth's in here. Ask the court." The next 48 hours unraveled faster than I'd imagined. The district attorney announced formal charges: forgery, bank fraud, wire fraud. The local paper ran the headline, "Son exploits sick mother. Brother exposes $1.1 million fraud." The real blow, though, wasn't legal. It was social. The same cousins who'd blocked me from group chats flooded my phone with apologies. Aunt Carol left 3 voicemails in tears. Ethan's friends at school stopped whispering that his dad was the greedy one. Brian's empire, built on charm and forged ink, collapsed in the space of 1 week. The final scene came on Sunday, at church again. Pastor Miller paused the service to address the congregation. We were misled, but Daniel brought truth at great cost to himself. Integrity requires courage, and he showed it. Applause followed, awkward but real. I caught Ethan's eye. He mouthed, "Proud of you, Dad." The blow wasn't just final. It was absolute. Brian would face years untangling charges and restitution. I would face the slow work of rebuilding trust with Mom, with family, with myself. But the power balance had shifted forever. And as I walked out of that courthouse into the Arizona sun, I knew. The brother who once painted me as villain now wore his own mask, cracked and discarded, for all to see. The verdict didn't end the questions in my head. Family gathered in hushed clusters after the hearing, some offering me pats on the back, others avoiding my eyes. Mom refused to leave until she spoke to me privately. We sat in a side room, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Her hands, thinner than I remembered, reached for mine. "I wanted to believe him," she said softly. "He told me you were angry, that you'd take everything for yourself." I thought, maybe I raised one son stronger than the other. Tears burned my eyes. "Mom, I never wanted anything but your trust." She nodded, eyes brimming. "Now I know. But he's still my child, Daniel. Do you understand?" I squeezed her hand. "I do. But being your child doesn't erase what he tried to do." That night, Ethan asked the question I'd been avoiding. "Dad, are you going to forgive Uncle Brian?" I looked at my son, the boy who had nearly believed his uncle's story, the boy who now watched every move I made to learn what integrity looked like. "Forgiveness isn't a switch," I said carefully. "It's not pretending it never happened. It's deciding whether carrying hate makes us weaker. I don't forgive him yet. I may never. But I won't let him live in my head. He doesn't get that power anymore." Ethan nodded slowly, like he understood more than I gave him credit for. Letters from Brian started arriving a week later. Long, rambling apologies mixed with excuses. I was desperate. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed. "We could rebuild if you'd just speak for me at sentencing." I stacked the envelopes in a drawer, unopened after the first. Every man must own the wreckage he creates. At church, Pastor Miller told me, "You've given your family clarity. That's a form of grace, even if you don't call it forgiveness." Maybe he was right. Maybe clarity was enough for now. The question of forgiveness hung in the air, unsolved. But for the first time in months, it wasn't crushing me. It was just there. A decision for tomorrow, not today. The sun had already set when Ethan and I carried Mom's boxes into her new apartment. It was smaller, easier to manage. No shadows of forged papers or whispered lies clinging to the walls. She sat in the armchair by the window, looking out over the parking lot lights. "I thought I'd die in that old house," she admitted. "But maybe this is better. Fresh walls. Fresh start." I set the last box down. "We can visit every day. No locks changed this time." She smiled faintly. the kind of smile that said she knew exactly what I meant. Life after the trial didn't hand me instant peace. It came slowly, like the desert after rain, green shoots creeping where the ground once cracked. My cousins stopped whispering. Friends who had doubted me now nodded in the grocery store, shame softening their eyes. And Ethan, he became my anchor. Every time doubt gnawed at me, he'd say, "Dad, you did the right thing." Brian was sentenced to 10 years when the paper ran the headline, "Son forged mother's name, stole $1.1 million in retirement." I didn't feel joy, just finality. His downfall wasn't my victory. It was his own making. What I had won was space, room to breathe again. One evening, I opened Dad's old ledger. The leather was cracked, the ink fading, but the numbers were steady, honest. He used to tell me, "Son, accounts show more than money. They show character. Every line either adds or subtracts from your name." Brian had erased his own name with those false lines. Mine, scarred but intact, was still legible. I decided then, I wouldn't let bitterness be the last entry. So I rebuilt. I poured time into Ethan's soccer games, into cooking Sunday dinners with Mom, into long drives where silence felt like healing, not punishment. The phone rang once. Brian from county lockup. I didn't answer. He'd already written enough. Forgiveness might come someday, but that wasn't the point anymore. The point was choice. My choice. I choose to guard my family's name with proof instead of whispers. I choose to stand tall, even when everyone believed a lie. I choose to rebuild without waiting for an apology that may never come. Most of all, I choose me. Because the real revenge isn't the gavel strike or the headlines. It's knowing I walked through betrayal without letting it define me. It's building a life where trust means something again. So if you're listening, remember this. Your dignity isn't theirs to steal. You decide what survives. I choose me. Tell me what you'd do. Drop your story and subscribe Revenge Stories Men U50 USA.